All right. Hello, hello, friends. Welcome back. Raquel from Our Infinite Nature here with Sarah from Hella Fluid Collective and Expansive Consulting. And we're so excited to be here chatting with you all about the upcoming Pisces full moon with lunar eclipse. Because, yes, friends, we are in eclipse season now. And we're going to talk a lot more about eclipse and just eclipse season and working with the energies of the eclipses because they never just come in one. They always come in pairs. And we always have twice. Eclipses always happen at least twice a year. Sometimes we get three a year and some extra special years, but usually we have two a year. But let's talk a little bit about this particular Pisces full moon because I don't know about you all, but I know what I've been feeling. And I have been feeling just like the sense of wanting to just surrender. And it's not like a giving up sensation, it's more of just like a giving in sensation to what is a lack of resistance. It does make me feel a little tired and it makes me feel like I just want to kind of like float on a pool float in a very gently moving stream. And I just want to float and flow with things. So if you guys are also feeling like kind of tired, kind of over your own BS and over the world's BS for sure, and you're ready to just kind of float with what is just happening in the world, you're definitely feeling the energies of this upcoming full moon in Pisces. Now, we're very lucky because we have a Pisces queen with us here today. Sarah is not only a resident astrologer, but she's also Pisces. And so, Sarah, I'm really curious as to some of what you're feeling with this upcoming full moon.
Yes. So for me, I have both my sun in Pisces and I have Mercury in Pisces, which controls a lot of my mind. Um, for me, I've always loved being a Pisces. I actually think that according to some polls, it's not the most sought after sign.
I love
Um,
Pisces energy.
I know, I
Yeah.
know. I love Pisces energy. I have a lot of water in my chart, so I love being intuitive. I love tapping into my emotions. I will admit that it's some using my emotions as a tool rather than a deciding factor has been something that I've worked on my entire life and
Mm-hmm.
really only got into once I had my Saturn return. So yes, there are some shadow sides of it. Um, Avoidance is a big one for me. I didn't realize how much of an avoider and an escape artist I was in my 20s and before that, especially with my communication, with my Mercury being there, just
Mm.
kind of let's not talk about it if it doesn't exist. Um, so there is that side. However, to me, the most beautiful thing is realizing that everything is connected. That's my favorite thing
Yeah.
about Pisces is it's kind of this big picture. It's ruled by Jupiter in traditional astrology. In modern astrology, it's Neptune, but Jupiter was the OG, which is this bigger picture and understanding how all of these things are connected.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's one of my deeper purposes as a Pisces is to play into and understand how everything, all of us, we're all interconnected.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you shared that because Pisces is also the last sign in the zodiac. It is the 12th zodiac sign of 12, although maybe there was 13 at one point. But anyway, that's a whole nother topic.
That's a
But
whole other topic.
we work with 12 right now. And
Yeah.
Pisces is the last of that zodiac sign, which really speaks to that Piscean energy of that, what you just spoke about, that interconnectivity, that like we are a part of a greater whole, something much bigger. And, Pisces is actually the mutable water sign. And when we think about, the signs and the elements that go with them, water is actually the most adaptive element already. I mean, you think about water and it can change forms. It can go from liquid to gas to solid, right? Like it's extremely adaptive, it's extremely resilient. It can flow under, over, around, through things.
Right.
And so already water, we have a lot of kind of resilience, a lot of adaptability, but then you bring in the Pisces mutable energy. No, yes, mutable. Yes, I'm correct. The mutable energy, which means changeable. So I think a lot of times Pisces gets this bad rap for being like overly emotional, overly sensitive. But I think that's actually more of a trope than it is reality because in actuality, Pisces are probably one of the most go with the flow, adaptable energies that are out there because of
Yes.
that mutable water quality. And when we think about some of the most amazing qualities of Pisces, and obviously some of the reasons that you and I get along so well, Sarah, um, is their emotional intelligence, their
Mhm.
intuitive connection. And with Pisces in particular, that intuitive connection is very empathic.
Yes.
Pisces are extremely empathic. In fact, most people who I work with who are Pisces, it's really about learning to create the boundaries between our own energy and other people's energy. Because for most
Girl, yes.
Pisces, that's hard. They're so empathic that it's just like all the things just come in.
Yes,
It's a very
yes, without
open
knowing.
energy. It's a very, very open energy, which is actually quite lovely because so many of us, we have to learn how to open. And I think in some ways, Pisces actually has to learn how to contain a
Yes.
little bit.
You've taught me a lot about
Yes.
energetic boundaries.
Boundaries, boundaries. And I love talking about boundaries versus protection because I think when we talk about it from this viewpoint of protection, it feels like there's something to be afraid of. There's something out there that's going to come get us. Whereas when we speak about boundaries, it's really about our own personal energy and our own personal behaviors.
Right.
And that's way more empowering. So Pisces is open, intuitive, empathic, creative, imaginative. And as you mentioned, there is that shadow side of escapism, of avoidance. And there can be also a shadow side of sometimes drowning in our
Mm,
own emotions.
yes.
Um, when it comes to emotions, they want to be felt, but they also want to move.
Mm,
And sometimes we can let ourselves feel, but then we don't let them move. We just like stay in that feeling. And I think there can be with some Pisces energy a little bit of that, like, I'm just going to stay here for a little bit. So it's just something to be aware of. Um, and with this particular full moon, what's really interesting is we also have Neptune and Saturn in Pisces with the moon during this lunation. And you had mentioned that Neptune is the more modern ruler of Pisces, correct?
correct.
And Neptune is really representative of dreams, imaginations, illusions as well. Um, and we also have Saturn that's in the mix in there. And Saturn has been kind of a key player for the last few lunations. I think if you guys have been following and watching here, you've heard me talk about Saturn a lot and like this kind of like challenges right in front of our face. And with this particular full moon, again, with like Saturn and Neptune and the moon and the eclipse all together, it just feels like there's still this uh, conversation the moon is having with us to be aware of our reality, like what is and what we want to be, which is a
Mm.
theme that I've been bringing up over and over again, I feel like. So at least the moon is being kind of consistent with us with this message.
A big lesson,
It is a
right?
big lesson. And I think so many of us can just look at the world right now and feel that gap between what we know is possible, what we
Yeah.
want to be, our reality and what is actually our reality. So I'm not surprised that the moon keeps giving us that lesson of balancing reality with what you want to be reality.
Yes,
um,
absolutely.
so before we kind of dive into the eclipse energy side of things, which is very interesting as well, I know you had mentioned that there's a lot of supportive astrology with this particular full moon, which is
Yeah.
wonderful because eclipse seasons can feel a little chaotic, can feel a little discombobulating. I love that word. And so to know that there's some supportive grounding astrology can be really, really helpful. So yeah, Sarah, share with us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So what we have with this full moon is we have what is called a kite aspect in astrology, which is, if you look at the lines and the shape of it, it ends up looking like a kite. So
So like a diamond almost.
Precisely,
Okay,
right? So in the middle, we have an opposition, which is the full moon. The moon and the sun are standing across from each other.
right.
Then, at the little shorter points, we have Pluto, which is over in Capricorn,
Capricorn.
and then we have Uranus down in Taurus. So those two are forming a sextile from the moon, which is a supportive conversation on both sides. And in addition to that, with the sun on the other side, those three, the sun, Pluto, and Uranus, are forming a grand trine, which means every single earth sign is activated. Or a grand trine means, all of the elementals are activated. So in this case, it's an earth grand trine. It's not exact. It's, out a couple degrees, but it is still very significant in this chart because all the earth signs are being activated by Pisces right in the middle there.
Mm,
So earth signs are always about getting practical,
yeah,
getting grounded. And as we know, Pisces, as we've talked about, is more about feeling into
yeah,
these things.
yeah,
So earth and water signs go hand in hand because it's about taking your emotions and grounding them into your practical reality.
yeah.
So Pluto is all about making it pushes you to make changes and to let go of outdated structures.
Hmm.
And with it being in Capricorn, it really relates to the systems that hold our society together.
Or
You're
hold our society back.
or right, better terms, right? Governments,
It's
structures,
both of those
yeah,
things. Yeah,
all those things. All the isms as well, racism, white supremacy, all of that, those are systems, right, that
yeah,
are currently guiding our society. So Pluto is asking us to let go of those things that don't really fit anymore.
yeah.
Uranus is in Taurus and it has been, since I think 2018, so it's nothing new, but it's being activated now. And Taurus is all about money structures,
Mm,
right? So we have our society, our government, and now our money structures. And then you go over to Virgo, which is more about the day to day.
yeah. Our
And
routines, our health.
yeah, exactly, right? Those are kind of those are the three earth signs being activated, and they're all being activated by our emotions and our spirituality over in Pisces in a harmonious way. So, what I like about kite formations is that there is still an opposition, which is, if everything was nice and easy and comfortable, we wouldn't really do anything to make a change.
Yeah, we've also be kind of bored.
Right.
Sometimes.
I mean, that's not what we're here to do in this lifetime. We're here to
Yeah,
learn lessons,
yeah,
right?
and
So that
expand.
opposition kind of pushes us to go a little bit, and it's a
Yeah,
full moon opposition, so it's not, too crazy. But then we have all the supportive energy with things that make us want to change. So Pluto is there to say,
yeah.
hey, let's push this out. Uranus is there to be like, let's replace it with this. And Pisces is there to say, let's make sure it feels right.
Oh, I love that. Let's make sure it feels right. Make sure it feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And I think Pisces really needs that grounding energy, actually. I think that Pisces, especially with that kind of escapism, avoidance, it can kind of Pisces energy can really just float out into the ethers. And so having that grounding energy can help us come back to reality. And when we look at this full moon in particular, we have the moon in Pisces. Our emotions are in that watery state and that place of like imaginations, dreams, possibilities. And yet the sun is still in Virgo, which is all about our day-to-day actions, our day-to-day routines, habits, our health, our nervous system, our body, right? And I think, and this kind of speaks a little bit to what we have with Saturn and Neptune as well. There's really this beautiful guidance from the moon to balance kind of our physical day-to-day life with our spiritual day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And that's a nice conversation between the sun and Virgo and this full moon in Pisces. Now, what we haven't brought into the picture yet is the whole eclipse energy. And that is just a wild card. And if you've been here with me, you might have heard me speak about eclipses, but ultimately what an eclipse is, what a lunar eclipse is when the Earth actually gets in between the sun and the moon. The sun is shining directly on the moon during a full moon. The Earth gets in the way and creates a shadow upon the moon. So the Earth's shadow is upon the moon. This is not a full eclipse, lunar eclipse, in that we're going to have an entire shadowing of the moon. But anytime we're in eclipse season, it's important to note that our luminaries, whether it's the sun or the moon, the things that create light for us here on Earth, are going to be shadowed, which means that our relationship to ourselves, the sun, as well as our relationship to our emotions, the moon, we're going to expect to feel some shadows come up there as well. And some important things to note with eclipse season, they're not scary moments. They're not the universe trying to come out there and karma you. In fact, I always think of the universe as blessed. The universe, yes, the universe. I always think of eclipse season as blessed times because it's actually almost like a permission slip for us all to kind of just like take our hands off the wheel, ride shotgun a little bit, like just chill out a little, not do as much, not force, not control, not manifest. Now, my personal belief is we are always manifesting, whether that's conscious or unconscious, but we can be very intentional with our manifestations, bring in the magic, and that's not actually something we want to do during eclipse season.
Right.
So, just a couple of like things to note about eclipse season. Of course, every single one of us is a free agent. You get to feel into what is most resonant for you. I'm just telling you what works for me when it comes to eclipse season and the way I like to work with it. And Sarah and I have discussed this, and I think we're kind of in resonance with this as well. So we have to look at eclipse seasons as these moments that are like forces of nature, like a hurricane or a tornado, right? Would you try and get harvest water in the middle of a hurricane to make like moon water, right? Like some people might. I would probably stay inside where it's safe and not try and harness the chaos of that particular situation. And so I think it's important for us to look at eclipse season as similar to a hurricane in terms of it being a force of nature. Now, of course, every lunation is a force of nature. Us existing is a force of nature as well. All of life is a force of nature. But eclipses in particular are moments when the universe is changing up the players on the board, making necessary moves in order to get pieces aligned for a more faded story. Now, we always have free will. It's one of the strongest spiritual concepts and one of the strongest spiritual laws of our existence is as humans, we have free will. And eclipse season doesn't take away our free will, but I think it's important for us to notice and note that we are co-creators with the universe. And at certain moments in time, we are tasked to really move into our creative tendencies and with our intention and with our actions and with our belief and with our emotions, make things happen. And other times we are tasked to be more reflective, to be more responsive, to be more in flow. And eclipse season is that time. It's that time to be more responsive, more reflective, more still, more receptive, and more in flow with what is going on. Now, of course, pairing that with Pisces energy can really help us be in that energy of just being in the flow of eclipse season. If this was an Aries full moon eclipse, we might feel a little bit more tension in like not doing all the things because Aries wants to do all the things. you
Right.
know? But Pisces is like, I like to go with the flow. So that can be really supportive for us. So, and when we're talking about a lunar eclipse versus a solar eclipse, which, the next the next lunation, we'll be talking about a solar eclipse in Libra. So we'll talk about that later. But with a lunar eclipse, we're really talking about more of our emotions and our relationships with others and our relationships with ourselves. So some things you might be noticing with this full moon is just feeling a little emotional. I mean, that's every full moon. Every full moon, we will often feel emotional. That is the illumination part of the full moon, which is that the moon helps bring up the emotions that want to be seen, want to be felt, want to be moved. When we're talking about an eclipse energy, typically it amplifies those emotions. So we can kind of expect it to feel like a full moon. I always often hear people say it's like a full moon on steroids. And I think it just depends on each person and, where they're at with their own emotional acceptance in terms of how intense it's going to feel. Like when I was feeling it intuitively to the energies of this full moon, it actually doesn't feel intense. It actually feels a lot less intense than the last full moons we've had that have felt way more chaotic. Like when I'm
Yeah.
feeling it intuitively to this full moon, it actually feels really spacious. Like it actually feels like it's providing us a more peaceful moment to actually feel and process what
Right.
we need to feel and process. Um, and you had mentioned there is a lot of supportive astrology, so maybe that's what I'm picking up on intuitively as well. But it just really feels like we're actually going to want to let ourselves feel. We're actually going to want to let ourselves move through these emotions without judgment so that we
Mm.
can move through them. And that was another thing that came through really strongly was this sense of realization, the illumination, but without the self judgment around it. Because I think sometimes when things come up and why full moons can feel so hurtful sometimes, or like it can feel like personal, right?
Right? Yeah.
Is because we end up judging ourselves, judging our emotions, judging these realizations that are coming up. And with this particular Pisces full moon with eclipse, there's really this urge, this guidance for us to release the judgment completely.
Yes.
Yeah.
And release the needing to take action. Like, I feel this way, so that means that I have to do this. It's
Yeah.
like holding space for opposing feelings and not necessarily having to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Pisces is
Yeah.
fish, right? So there's
Yeah.
a lot of both,
Complexity. Yeah. Both
right?
and love it.
Like,
Yeah.
I had this feeling recently of like having a little bit of self-doubt in some of my business choices. So originally I was like, okay, well, I have to throw in the towel and quit doing that. But it's like I have these doubts and I'm still very determined to reach my goals.
Yes.
So
Yes.
both can exist even though they feel like they don't go, but it's about figuring out how to create space for both of them.
Yes, I love that very much. And I think that speaks, I mean, both to Pisces energy with what you said, those two fish, right? Like the complexity, the duality. And I think it also speaks to the energies of the eclipse itself, which is like, hey, we all have shadows. This is a
Yeah.
part of who we are. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing to deny or repress or try and get rid of. It's actually here to be integrated, accepted, integrated, embraced, right? It also speaks a little bit to the energies of the autumn equinox, which is coming up on the 22nd. I don't want to spend too much time with that because we're already at time. But if you head over to the Moonblog, I have some information there about the autumn equinox. But just know the autumn equinox or spring equinox for those on the southern hemisphere. When we're talking about equinoxes, we're talking about the equal length of day and night, and it's all about that integration of the yin and yang energies, the light and the shadow, the day and the night, the desired and the undesired, the masculine and the feminine, which again, energies, not gender. Um, and like all three of those things, the Pisces energy, the eclipse, and the equinox, all happening in such a close proximity to each other, or the same day with Pisces and the eclipse itself, we're really actually in a place, I think energetically in a place to do some beautiful shadow work, to do it in a way that feels loving, that feels
Compassionate.
supportive, compassionate, self-compassionate, and that actually helps us get to the next place because it gives us this opportunity to move through the resistance that has been there before. So
Yes.
it's actually really, really supportive. And I highly recommend doing some journaling, meditation, therapy or somatic work, working with someone who can help hold space for you and your emotions around this particular full moon. Uh, Anything with meditation, and meditation can look like different things to different people. It doesn't always mean just sitting still. It could be going for a walk. It could be going for a swim. It could be painting. It could be free writing. Like there's lots and lots of ways to meditate, but giving yourself more moments of stillness, more moments of meditation are extremely powerful for this full moon. And so, just really briefly, a couple things to note. This is not a full moon for charging your crystals. This is not a full moon for making moon water. This is not a full moon for active manifestation. This is a full moon for feeling, for flowing, for loving yourself and your people. Okay. Releasing judgments. And if you want more information about how to work with the energies of the eclipse, how not to work with the energies of the eclipse, the astrology of this particular full moon, as well as some information about the autumn equinox, please check out the Moonblog. We have it listed below. You can find it there. Um, Sarah and I will also be going live on Instagram next week on the day of the full moon. So this is on September. I don't even think we said the date. This full moon in Pisces, the lunar eclipse is happening
Classic Pisces.
on Tuesday, September 17th.
Yes.
You can find all that in the Moon blog as well. Sarah and I will be going live on IG on that day to talk a little bit about the energies of the eclipse and to do some live reads as well. So you guys can join us there. We'll be going live at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. We'll put that below. And thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for all the things. If you enjoy this kind of content, please like, subscribe, share, do all the things. And please also go check out Sarah's content over at, is it Hella Fluid Collective?
Hello Fluid
Yes,
Collective on all
on all
platforms. TikTok,
platforms.
Instagram, YouTube. I got a lot going on.
Yeah. And Sarah not only helps us with like the moon energies, but she shares like week ahead astrology, month ahead astrology. So if you're really wanting to get into more of the energies of the transits, please go check out Sarah's page over at Hella Fluid Collective.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This was great. As always, I love chatting with you.
I know it's just I mean we could probably talk for 2 hours about this stuff, but we won't
Forever.
do that for you friends right now. Thank you guys so much for watching. Happy eclipse season, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with more on the upcoming solar eclipse in Libra. All right, see you then, friends. Bye.
Bye.
And